Morning, gentlemen. As I
Morning.
said, always good to have two sell-side and two buy-side, so hopefully we'll have some interesting conversations. So let me start with you, Faisal. This whole notion of moving the core network to the cloud, that is starting to gain momentum. Yeah? And I'll come to seeking some contrarian views, and there's a lot of skepticism as well, and explain why. But what are you seeing? What are you seeing from a trend perspective? What are you seeing as benefit?
Yeah, I think, certainly firstly, I think it's important to keep our customers at the center of everything that we do, listen to what they're doing and listen to what the organizations and their strategies are. And if you look at it generally, most of our customers are in the midst of their digital transformation, moving most of their IT and workloads to the cloud. And as a result of that, I think the flexibility and the intimacy and immediacy that they enjoy, I think we as CSP should not play as a detractor there. So I feel moving our network to the cloud is a net new normal to be able to sort of have that interplay between cloud and network. Now, for long enough, we know that the cost pressures that our customers are having to go through because of the extensive amount of upfront capex investments that they have to do. Whereas if you look at most of our customers' organizations, they're seasonal. Right? They have their peaks and they have their lows, and we have to give them the option to be able to pay as they use, seasonally based on how their businesses adopt. Secondly, I think if you want to enable their organizations for innovation and for the future, we have to understand the need of speed and immediacy, so they should have the flexibility to be able to stand up a network and tear it down in a matter of minutes. Now, if we home in some of that into what we are doing at BT, I think just recently this week we've launched what we call as the Global Fabric, and that's our cloud-centric network. And the way we've built that network is across 150 locations globally, very close to some of the carrier-neutral facilities, very close to some of where our customers are based. So it helps move away most of the egress costs that most of our customers are cribbing about all over the world today. It also abstracts all of the complexity, all of the interconnection between all of the hyperscaler nodes that are present all over the world, and multi-cloud, there's no single standard nomenclature of compute that each of them follows, so it could be really hard. So we sort of abstract all of that and provide an e-commerce experience to our customers. So for long, we've been speaking about consumerization of B2B, and with that e-commerce experience where they can add, move, change things, it becomes really a platform where they can innovate within their organization, and we as CSPs can sort of plot the roadmap of innovation on top of that, build autonomous networks, build Gen AI, and offer that OTT services. So in summary, what I'm saying is that cloud network or cloud-centric network is not an option. For people who have not gone there, for CSPs who have not started thinking about that, they're late to the party. So I think it's a net new normal, and we have to adopt that.
Great, thanks, Faisal. So I'm going to switch to Andre, right, CTO. You've been on a journey towards, moving your network, starting, baby steps. I call it virtualization. But where are you in the journey, and what are you seeing?
Well, good morning. We have virtualized our network, on-prem. We didn't go for telecom workloads. We didn't go into the public cloud yet. Maybe we will go, but in Cambodia, we don't have a presence, let's say, of any of the global hyperscalers. But what we do at the on-premise, we have done it a few years ago, and actually it was a good solution and a good decision, because we have met. I can give you a few examples. For example, what we were able to do. We let's say, using for the most of the telecom part, we are using one of the Chinese vendors. I will not say the name, but they have certain issues with access to the CPUs. And the solution, since we are on the cloud, we were able to use in the same cluster different type of technology, let's say x86 and ARM processors. So this abstraction layer made it not a problem, actually. So we are able to combine these two things and run seamlessly. And at the same time, it also allows us to move in infrastructure from different generation of equipment without any sort of swaps or any additional investment that associated with swapping hardware and so on. We just adding into the cluster new generation of equipment, retiring the old one. So it's been smooth, and this is really something which solves potentially a huge issue for us.
Great. So Vivek, telco cloud, Rakuten Symphony, everybody knows your mantra. Your perspective on this whole notion of cloud and network really embracing that to the hilt.
First of all, good morning, everybody. I'm glad everybody's got a place to sit today. But I think I always try to start with, at the risk of repeating myself, for some of you who've actually heard me say this before, cloud is a very generic sort of motherhood statement, and then cloud native, edge, etc. are slightly different. And telco cloud is a very specific manifestation of that. Telco workloads impose characteristics that are not necessarily found in the IT world. So it's not a lift and shift approach where what worked in the IT world will directly work for the CTO. And once you have that recognition, coming back to what's our perspective or my perspective on moving network workloads into the cloud, I think it's actually reflected quite well in both what Pavesh said and what Andre said, that it's actually workload dependent. There's an economic factor which I'll come to later. What we have seen is that certain edge workloads are actually really great candidates for doing edge compute. Now, depending on which camp you are in, you could either say that edge could live in a public cloud or it has to be on-prem. There are real-world characteristics like latency, etc., where public cloud still has something to work upon. There are solutions coming out where you have appliances being provided by the hyperscalers, but then the argument is that really a public cloud because it's sitting in your data center? But then things around core, for MVNOs and for smaller tier operators, including greenfields, the control plane going into the public cloud is likely to become a more and more growing reality. We've had innovations like Working Group 2 come up in combination with Cisco and AWS, etc., who've done some really interesting work in this space. And I personally think we will see a little bit more of this. But then the economic factor kicks in. Parvez, you and I were having a chat earlier in the morning about what happens to egress if I send stuff into the cloud. That's where it's important to understand the characteristic of your workload and what it will result in terms of traffic profiling, etc. So the control plane, I think, for the most part, for a certain set of telcos, might be a viable candidate to move into the public cloud or a cloud. Public cloud more specifically because you have a cost imperative there. If it's on-prem, you pretty much are doing all in-house. But if you start looking at data plane stuff, and I'm sure that with innovation, with time, with competition, even the hyperscalers will come up with more innovative commercial models. We're not there yet. I think that is a slightly painful situation as far as the economics are concerned today. The cloud native paradigm, I think, is the best bridge in our opinion today, and I'm biased, obviously. We basically believe that the best way to leverage the key benefits of public cloud, so elasticity, scalability, pay-as-you-go, is to blend on-prem hybrid infrastructure and use cloud for burst capacity. And there are certain workloads which are very deterministic, where a public cloud infrastructure might make sense from the get-go. So that's my view on it.
Great. So I'm going to ask Jan, as Chief Digital Officer at M1, a contrarian view. Every chief digital officer, chief technology officer comes under pressure from an OpEx perspective in their cycle, right? And this industry has gone through that, right? When capital was cheap, there was no challenges. And then when the industry is not growing, the first thing the CEO says is, or the CFO, the OpEx. So your view on embracing cloud in totality, what are you seeing as some of the challenges that you face?
So that's a very good question. And to be honest, I actually liked what Vivek has been just actually put out, because I think you need to distinct when you talk about cloud, what do we actually mean with that? And I think when you look at the title of our panel here, you obviously see it's actually talking about cloud native. It's not talking about public cloud. And I think that is actually the first thing which you can already distinct with each other, because public cloud is actually just then the location, the partner, etc., which you actually want to work with together. The other thing is actually to apply the cloud native pillars, the cloud native underlying principles towards your architecture. It doesn't matter if it's in the IT or on the network. And that would be, especially when I'm talking with the top management, my answer actually how I will explain them, okay, look guys, when I'm talking about cloud, it's not only meaning about public cloud. It's actually, what I'm meaning is actually talking about cloud native. And the first thing is like, look, and I love actually what you also say, like, look, it's actually really, you need to distinct between your workloads. You really need to think about all of your functions which you actually have in your full stack, from where the customer is using your mobile app down to really hardcore what is actually happening on your servers. And when you then actually come and look in holistically on it and believe like you can apply across the full stack cloud native principles, then actually you have the flexibility and also the agility to change whatever is maybe the pressure right now, whatever the cycle is going, what the CFO might tell you, like, oh yeah, now you have CapEx, please spend next year. No, sorry, CapEx is now a little bit thin. Let's go for OpEx. And it makes your life, doesn't matter if you're a CIO, CDO, CTO, it makes your life much easier because at least you have got the opportunity to say like, well, I don't care if it's actually on still my on-premise virtualization layer, or is it actually in a public cloud, or is it in something in between, some hybrid form of it? I can be much more flexible with it. And I think that's actually for me the ultimate target where I believe all of telcos actually should go to. Because that actually brings really the flexibility for you to plan. And to be honest, it makes actually your life as, again, CIO, CDO, CTO a little bit less riskless, and also give you a little bit more sleep because you can be just answer and respond much faster and don't have huge development cycles, etc. in front of you.
So Vivek, building on Jan's perspective, right, and we'll park fixed and focus on the mobile. And I think with 5G, the confluence of factors, people have been testing autonomous networks with 5G, network slicing, opportunities from the 3GPP standard. If people are going to embrace the journey, as you said, either to cloud native, embracing which workloads to kind of shift, and you started talking about the control plane. What business opportunities are you seeing, right? But embracing that. I mean, I think intuitively people say, hey, I can get some efficiency, higher degrees of automation and so on. But from a growth or a revenue or a differentiation, what are you seeing, as a service provider in this space?
I think there's 4 key reasons why customers are now diving very deeply into cloud native. Jan, I'm going to steal some of what you said because I think you summarized it better than I did. But coming back to your questions, and I think the first is the ability to have flexibility in choice, and the choice is not just in terms of deployment models, but also your vendor ecosystem. The whole disaggregation, the whole Open RAN, open cloud initiative. The word open is because the telco industry wants to move to an era where they now have the ability to relatively quickly swap and change workloads, infrastructure components, etc. So that flexibility is the first driver, but everybody is in a capitalistic society. So the second thing that is driving this is efficiencies. That efficiency in the cloud native world is underpinned by something we heard previously as well before we came up, extreme automation. If you truly adopt all the principles of cloud native, you actually move into what, what we call hyper automation, not just automation. And I can give some examples of that. And last but not the least, it is, and this could be a provocative topic, but I think it is simplicity to an extent where if you truly do cloud native, you are designing operational alignment, DevOps processes, cloud native from the design principles point of view, not just acquiring somebody else's computer and saying I'm using cloud. So that simplicity allows you to have a DevOps chain which says, can I focus my intellectual capital from my team on business logic and customer experience and not on what I call digital plumbing? A lot of people in this room probably started as engineers, and we all love to solve a problem the best way we know how. And sometimes my way is better than his way or her way, right? And this manifests itself in our philosophy in our organizations as well. And I think the time is now here that the underlying platforms and technologies in cloud native have matured enough. They've had enough battle scars that they can deliver all the digital plumbing in a low-code, no-code fashion that you can actually ask your team saying, you no longer have to keep bashing your keyboard to get this done because you can get 80% optimization in your time. Allocate that brain power to something more meaningful that either the CxO sees or the customer sees. So those are some of the reasons that drive the business opportunities. A lot of it is happening, at least in what we are talking to customers about, in two areas. One is any disaggregated network, and it doesn't matter whether you do Open RAN or you do some sort of distributed RAN, right? If you're going to disaggregate your network, you are going to face a variety of infrastructure and technology that you have never seen before. And if you're going to say, I want to do Open X, but I'll do full stack from one vendor, why bother? You're better off where you are already. And it is a scary notion because there are executives who worry about, well, it's hard enough to deal with 1 or 2 vendors. What will I do with 5 or 6 vendors? Trust me, and maybe Faisal has a view, your procurement teams are very, very good, right? And I have scars to prove it. So I think that is one reason, disaggregated networks. More specifically from a use case point of view, we actually saw the numbers. I think it was 25 billion on the previous slide on edge compute. I don't know if that number is going to be accurate or not, but it's an indicative direction. You are starting, I mean, most people in this room are carrying what was called a supercomputer 15 years ago in your pocket. And from a computer science definition, we are all at what, a teraflop probably, or a whatever, right, in our pockets right now, whether you have an Android phone or an Apple phone or whatever, right? So edge computing is already here. You have photographs which are getting AI recognition done without you even touching it, etc. Imagine if the telco starts stepping into this space because, hey, guess who is serving as the first point of edge when all of us consume something on data? It's the telco. But right now, they've not yet had the opportunity to monetize that. So the conversation we are having is also, in addition to the disaggregated network, where cloud native can actually help saying, can you help us start monetizing some of this? And there's a few examples around video analytics, KYC, some other stuff around ports, etc. So I think those are some of the conversations we're having.
Hopefully some of them are $1 billion revenue opportunities, Vivek. So Andre, I'm going to look at it from a different perspective, right? I think there was a pulse survey done at the start of the session. To go towards this direction, most people say it's people issues, right? You're a CTO, a large engineering team. You started your journey, as you said, within your own bounds of, sort of basic cloud native virtualization. What are some of the challenges you're seeing? I mean, you come to these conferences and there are people saying, hey, this is the future and embrace this, but practical challenges that you see as a CTO?
When we speak about the people issue, right, it goes down to this, to the issues with acquiring skills, right? So in Cambodia, because I'm from Cambodia and I work there, we have even, let's say, more acute issue with the access to the people and skilled people especially. It's getting easier last few years, but still it's very, very hard. And so basically what I see now, the technology-wise, technology is, I won't say it's very mature, but there are various types of technologies for whatever whatever you want, you can actually do it. But it's very hard to collect a team of people that is able to, first of all, they know about what technology is used for what, and how to marry it all together, and how to make sure that it's economically feasible and is actually resilient and it properly works. That's one of the reasons why we run basically one vendor for all our telecom, because as you mentioned, it's very, very hard to, even with one vendor. But if you start to disaggregate things, then your requirements for skills will, multiply by 10. And the more you go into the open things, open RAN, open this and that, it will multiply your demand for skill even more, for every step going further. So one end, you want to be more flexible and maybe save some money along the way, but actually you'll have to increase your staff, your cost again, and then it will come with a different set of problems to solve. So this is something that I see, and it's something that is really, really hard to solve. Maybe generative AI will somehow help with this. Now, I think it's worth mentioning that, I'm personally pushing my people that I work with to actually use it. Even though there are risks, you shouldn't send the information in there because you never know how it will be. But I think sure, risk is there, but there are ways to mitigate. You can use, let's say, Microsoft OpenAI large language models, for example, where they are not in public cloud, and that's what we are trying to do. And so I see this ChatGPT and similar large language models it looks to me like you have, let's say, if you teach people how to use it, how to properly engineer prompts, how to, let's say, train it and so on, then you can multiply your team by, let's say, 2, but by 3, because the productivity increases. People who don't know things, you just basically teach them how to use these large language models to learn things. Actually, they will help to learn because you have a kind of friend in computer now whom you can ask some questions. And I mean, people say that it can hallucinate, but of course you need to verify whatever the answer you get. But so summarizing it all, one of the biggest issues is the people and skills, but there are solutions with bleeding edge technology like large language models.
So Jan, you're leading a transformation of going from a telco to a digico, as your CEO likes to call it, and you're pretty much at the end of it. So you've been through the trials and tribulations, and to your point about which workload goes where, how do you re-architect it, your perspective on challenges and what people can sort of maybe avoid learning from some of the mistakes and repeat new ones, not have the same ones here.
Yeah. I think one thing is clearly, I think through the transformation, I mean, open your eyes and ears. And I would say, make a mistake one time, but not a second time. I mean, you will learn a lot during a transformation. I mean, that's clear, because I mean, if you start changing, I mean, you will observe a lot. I mean, it's the same. I mean, if you just an example of a house. I mean, if you buy a house new, I mean, usually, of course, you run with a realtor through it, you see everything, and then, but as soon as you actually take it over, you figure out, oh my God, the piping down the basement is not proper, or the gardening back there, the fence is not looking well, is maybe end of life, and such things. I mean, that is obviously all what you need to take into consideration. But I mean, that is more like, I think, the well-known part. I think the more unknown part is obviously, especially when you run through transformation, and I think that's really at the core, it's actually not the technology, it's actually more the customer and the people who are driving. Because you need to communicate with them. You need to take them on that change, actually what is happening. I mean, for technology, again, you can plan for it. You can plan the change. You can build a strategy. You can decide on where do I put which workload. You can decide which partner I go with on my transformation journey, et cetera, et cetera. So that's all where you have it really in your hand. But when you drill it down and it's actually come more to, okay, what is actually the experience I'm envisioning for this transformation for my clients, that's actually where it's getting really, really hard. And that's actually the tough part. And the other part is obviously also, how do I take now my team, my employees actually, and not only the people in the IT or network domain, no, everyone, especially also on the business side, because all of a sudden there are tools which they have been loved to use for a decade plus is gone from one day to the next. And it's, I mean, every one of us know that. I mean, as soon as you one time, I mean, just take your mobile phone. Every time you get your new Samsung, iPhone, whatever, you change it, and they have been made a major update. You always feel like, oh my God, where is it now? Now before it was actually right up the button. Now it's left down. What is going on here? So, I mean, change is difficult for humans. I mean, that is the reality. So obviously, you need to plan also the change management. And I don't talk about the relation change management now. I really talk about the people change management, okay? Even though the other part is also very crucial. And therefore, you also need to develop a plan, what to do with it. Because, I mean, it's the tools is changing, the processes is changing, the pace is changing, especially through digital transformation. Because there's an expectation in the room, especially from not only the top management, but especially also from the customer angle. Because, I mean, just to give you an idea, I mean, we did some research actually here in Singapore, and it was quite interesting because we as a telco tend to obviously compare ourselves with other telcos. So obviously as I'm on, I would always compare myself with StarHub or Synctel, but the clients don't do this. Our clients, they actually compare us with Grab, they compare us with Lazada, they compare us with other digital players. So when you then actually look again on your transformation, what do I actually need to build? And it's not only the front ends, it's actually you need to think about what is also my data strategy. How do I actually now nurture the data? How do I monetize the data? But especially how do I use this data to create experiences for my clients? And that is actually then again a very, very tough challenge to come by. And I think this in all shows you just that actually a transformation has got a lot of facets, a lot. I mean, I believe there are more layers than an onion has, for sure. And sometimes you also cry, same thing if you bite in your onion. That's unfortunately the reality. I mean, transformation is tough. But to be honest, we are now, as you mentioned already, we are now more at the end of the transformation. And we see now how I call it lovely, we dig the hole into the mountain. The track is now being built. The train is slowly moving and the pace is getting higher, which is great. So we see the light. It's luckily not the light which is coming in front of us. It's the light which we're seeing at the end of the tunnel. So it's great. So that's good. And definitely we also see, look, we have now, and I think the best thing is actually when you get feedback from the market back, when the client is actually saying, like, look, it's great with the new app. What you have been built is great. What you have now new products which you have been built, like our new data passport, for example. We just see how this is now picking up, which was not possible on the legacy stack which we had. Now we can build something like this, and that is actually great. So I think transformation, not a nutshell conclusion for me, is transformation is hard, but it's necessary for every telco.
Awesome. You're still smiling after transformation. That's a good thing.
Wait for it.
Faisal, I'm going to pick up something that Jan mentioned, the data, and also some of the things about, crawl, walk, run, and looking at it from a fixed network perspective. We talk a lot about network automation, but I think that's just the crawl, walk, and the run comes when you truly go to autonomous networks, right? And in the fixed world, I think you've been, as you started the conversation about, as a service, right? Orchestration, delivering a platform. So, but what are the challenges for your partners, other CSPs, but also customers to embrace that, right? What are you seeing as challenges, and what solutions can you kind of think of?
I think so the first thing that I want to resonate with is a survey which was conducted when we started off, and I want to touch upon some of the points that some of my colleagues here mentioned about culture, because whenever you're running a transformation, right, obviously you get to know all of the complexity of the technology, adoption of technology and all of that, but rewiring your team to think about cloud is almost like making them unlearn and relearn something that's the future. And that's the hardest part of a transformation. And that is why I think you were part of the journey helping us as well. We created a fundamental divide between our legacy business, fixed asset business, which even if you order something, it takes a few days to deliver it, to a business now where the world has evolved to immediacy, where you're turning on and off services on a portal. So it's a fundamental shift to how telcos used to operate to now almost an e-commerce consumer grade experience to B2B. And we are at the cusp of, I think, the largest technology transformation the world is seeing. Migrating to the cloud is one thing, but then you talk about Gen AI, you talk about AI, you talk about autonomous networks, and now we are even talking about LEO. Yeah, so I think what's important to understand is the mindset of constant innovation and exploration and learning and adapting to whatever the change is coming your way. So as long as you build that culture into your team, I think no matter what the pace of transformation is and however fast that's happening, you can take it head on. So I give the top priority to culture there. But at the same time, I think when we ran our digital transformation, we wanted to make a decision between, and whether we want to buy a technology or we want to build it, and we took a decision that we want to build something that we want to differentiate with other service providers, because if I buy, then any of these guys can buy it and lead the market there. So that the major differentiation was, let me buy where I can go faster and build where I can differentiate. And when we bought certain COTS packages and software, and we wanted to integrate into them, then we observed that the pace of digital transformation that we are heading forward with is not the pace at which they're developing their products. So it causes a little bit of an air gap. So when you're running a digital transformation, it's not only about your people, it's bringing your external vendors into that ecosystem, bringing your forums like your MEF and TM forum and all of those guys who are building their open standards and bringing them in and adapting to your open API standards, etc., and delivering those. So yeah, it's increasingly complex. The digital transformation starts from culture, starts from your partnerships. Talk about procurement as one of the examples. I'll give you the last one. You've got your teams in procurement. One is focusing on telco procurement, the other is focusing on IT procurement, somebody's focusing on app procurement. But when you look at it at the end, somebody's gone and bought the cheapest access in the world, and he thinks he's done a brilliant job. But when I'm running a digital transformation, looking at it holistically, and I come to that access supplier, they don't have any APIs that I can leverage. Completely crashes my digital transformation journey because I can't offer that immediacy to the customer, I can't offer that intimacy. So I think the last point is that every department needs to understand the digital transformation journey that we're going on. They have to have a collaborative and a communicative environment, and that's where culture and the holistic way in which you run this people change, as much as the technology change, becomes really important for your digital transformation to be successful. Those are some of the challenges that I personally have experienced while running this.
Great. So I'm just going to turn to the audience. If there's any pressing questions you want to ask these esteemed gentlemen here, raise your hand. Maybe there's a roving mic, you can. But if not, as we're coming to kind of the last minutes of the session, Vivek, I want to start with you, right? When folks attend a conference, they want to take away something, right? They want to sort of remember, take away. So we've been discussing sort of the embracing, cloud native architecture, embracing workloads on the cloud, shifting the changes, and adopting autonomous networks and really driving that efficiency element. So from your perspective, as you talk to other CSPs in your journey, what are kind of the top 3 things that the other CXOs and the CSPs sitting in this room can take away?
Did you mean in terms of adoption or monetization?
Just in terms of embracing an adoption and the path towards, cloud.
I think some of it's already been touched upon across the different questions you've already raised. But just to re-summarize, I think the biggest one is still not true clarity between cloud native and cloud. And the second actually, and it's interesting actually, both these keywords are part of the title of the panel, the monetization. Generally, if I take a poll right now instinctively, what would monetization mean? Most people would say growth in revenue, right? Any successful business, regardless of industry, they focus on 3 things. And ask any CFO and they will agree probably. The first thing is you have to have cost efficiency and optimization built in on an ongoing basis. You don't necessarily react when it's too painful, because then you have to take painful measures. The second thing is you have existing products and revenue streams and markets. Can you do something? You touched upon the access example where it created an air gap, I think is the word you use. It slowed down your ability to do stuff faster. Can you do something where you may not be offering new services or new markets, but your time to market to deliver those services can be accelerated by a quarter? CFO will love it because you are monetizing existing assets faster. So it's a cash flow improvement. And the last part is what is popularly associated with monetization is creating new value streams, new products, entering new markets, and that's the upside, right? So I think the first thing that we hear is the early adopters of cloud native understood really early on what cloud native was really about. And it really helped because then we were able to participate with them in the journey. And the second thing is around when they focus on monetization, it's a lot easier for them to then do a business case for this because it's not just upon the upside. They can understand what my cost efficiencies are, operational efficiencies are, how I can deliver things faster. I think the third thing that, and this is something that we are very proud of, is you touched upon skill sets in Cambodia, etc. Maybe it's heartening, but it's a problem even in Silicon Valley, which is where a lot of these technologies are born. Kubernetes, orchestration, containerization is still not as voluminous a skill set that the world would expect it to be. So the choice of the platform that you use to drive your cloud native journey, that has become a significant enabler or a catalyst, because if you can have a platform that does day 0, day 1, day 2, acceleration of your ability to onboard vendors, deploy and test workloads, change them when they're provisioned, your platform can auto-scale in or out your workloads based on traffic. Suddenly what you're doing is you're lowering the bar to entry for your technical teams and your ops team, saying, you can adopt this technology. You're actually going to be enabled and empowered to start leveraging this new world. And you can lower some of the fear of saying, well, I have an update and I don't know where the button is on my phone anymore. And I think the choice of the platform is also critical. So those are the 3 things that we most often are now hearing and seeing with customers.
Awesome. So that's some valuable insights there. Andre, fellow CTOs in the room, the one thing that you want them to sort of take away from this session from a CTO perspective, what would that be?
I would be not technical in a sense. I mean, technology-wise, there is a big choice to take from, and it's really much depends on what problem you want to solve. But I think what is a common thing is thank you for mentioning the culture, because in all this cloud, not cloud monetization and all this kind of actually a bunch of difficult questions, I think the foundation is your technical team and how good they are and how eager they are to explore things, how eager they are to experiment. And I also agree with you that the foundation of all of this is culture, because if you a good culture in the company will allow it to move faster, to experiment without fear of failure, because experiments come with failure and you will fail more than succeed. So it's a normal thing. Because what I saw many times when it was very fashionable a few years ago to go break silos, digitize, fail fast and so on, but actually very often leaders or let's say CEOs feel like saying, fail fast, but please don't fail. This kind of stuff. And many people misunderstand what this actually means. It doesn't mean that the failure, a stupid failure is never good, or 2 times fail on the same thing is also not so good. But fail fast means you see something doesn't work, you just don't continue. Find something that works. So in this understanding. So summarizing, I think the culture is extremely important. So you just empower your people, let them do experiments, tell them what means fail fast. It's not like you fail a few times on the same thing, doing the same thing, and I think this will eventually, over time, will make your team possible to solve really complicated business problems.
Summary is this industry will flourish when artificial general intelligence is there and less humans, maybe. But Jan, the one thing in a minute, what should you kind of leave with the audience that they can take away?
I was actually thinking hard about it, and I put it a little bit provocative. Don't be stubborn on public cloud, but be stubborn on cloud native. And I will later have also talk about it, so I will just keep it as it is, so everyone can tune in, and then I will elaborate a little bit more later on it and give a little bit more time to talk.
Right. It's always interesting to hear that debate. Faisal?
Yeah, I think
one thing they want.
I think the pace of technology transformation is only going to get more intense. So I think mindset of innovation and exploration is only going to help you take whatever's coming head on. And the last thing is listen to your app. Cloud is not an oasis to solve all the problems. Something is fit for on-prem, something's fit for public cloud, something's fit for private cloud. Talk to your customers, listen to your app, and your decision will be spot on.
Now, that's been a very interesting and insightful from all the panelists. So in summation, I think it comes back to people, right? But also being very conscious about what you do with your workloads. Don't embrace technology for the sake of technology. Understand the problem statement that you're trying to solve. And again, fast fail, it was something that was talked about. I think to Vivek's point, monetization is not just about revenue and growth. If you can drive efficiency and make your business far more efficient and deliver greater margins, that's going to deliver profitable growth. I think this industry needs that, one of the lowest total shareholder return of all industries. So we collectively need to turn that around. Otherwise, I can't see how this industry is going to exist in the longer term, but we can turn it around. I was at Copenhagen in DTW a few weeks ago. 1% return on $1 trillion investment is what this industry has done so far. So I don't know how many industries can survive that, but I think from what we heard from the panelists, it's an opportunity to turn that around. So please join me in thanking the panelists for the insightful discussion.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you. Thanks, man.